In a time of profound uncertainty for the Democratic Party, David Hogg, the newly elected vice-chair of the Democratic National Committee (DNC), has emerged as a vocal advocate for substantial change within the party. Speaking candidly in a recent interview, Hogg expressed a sense of urgency for the Democrats to adopt a more combative stance against former President Donald Trump and to better address the concerns of their base. "The base of the party, they just want us to do anything," he asserted, highlighting a pervasive sentiment among party supporters who feel marginalized and unheard. At just 25 years old, Hogg has quickly become a prominent figure in Democratic politics, largely due to his activism following the tragic school shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. In 2018, his call for generational change resonates with a growing faction within the party that believes entrenched establishment figures are failing to connect with voters, particularly younger demographics. Hogg argues that competitive primaries could invigorate the party, injecting new energy into a movement that has struggled to maintain momentum in recent election cycles. Recent polling underscores the urgency of Hogg's message. A Washington Post-ABC News Ipsos poll revealed that nearly 70% of Americans perceived the Democratic Party as out of touch with the concerns of the public, an alarming figure that reflects the challenges the party faces in regaining voter trust. "We need to dramatically change," Hogg remarked, citing the $2 billion spent by Democrats in the last election cycle, which yielded disappointing results against a candidate many consider unfit for office. Amidst this backdrop, Hogg has launched a political organization called Leaders We Deserve, aimed at unseating what he describes as asleep at the wheel Democrats in safe blue districts. However, his push for internal reform has not been without controversy. DNC Chair Ken Martin has publicly opposed Hogg's efforts, arguing that the party should remain neutral in primary elections to avoid alienating its base. Tensions escalated further when a DNC subcommittee recommended invalidating the election that brought Hogg into his current role, citing procedural errors. Despite the challenges, Hogg remains focused on revitalizing the party's agenda, particularly in addressing the disillusionment felt by younger voters. He emphasized the need for Democrats to listen to their constituents, especially concerning pressing issues like economic inequality and healthcare. Drawing from personal experiences, Hogg recounted the financial burdens his family faced while caring for his father, a Navy veteran suffering from Parkinson's disease. His advocacy for reforming the healthcare system exemplifies the kind of policy-driven leadership he believes is essential for restoring faith in the Democratic Party. As the political landscape continues to shift with Trump's return to power and a looming 2028 election, Hogg's insistence on the importance of fighting back against authoritarianism speaks to a broader desire for accountability and progressive change within the party. He calls for candidates who genuinely understand the stakes of the current political climate, pushing for meaningful reforms rather than mere resistance to Republican policies. The sentiment echoed by Hogg is gaining traction among other Democratic leaders who also recognize the need for a more robust and unifying agenda that addresses the real concerns of American families. As discontent grows and calls for a more proactive approach intensify, the Democratic Party stands at a crossroads. It must either embrace the calls for change and adapt to the evolving political landscape, or risk further alienating a base eager for leadership and tangible results. Looking ahead, the question remains, will the Democratic Party heed the warnings of its younger leaders and adapt to the demands of its constituents, or will it continue to struggle under the weight of a disillusioned electorate? As Hogg and others advocate for a new direction, the political future of the party may hinge on its ability to effectively communicate its vision and re-engage with voters who have felt abandoned in recent years. On May 17, 2025, the Republican Party of Wisconsin convened for its annual state convention at the Central Wisconsin Convention and Expo Center in Rothschild. This gathering brought together a diverse group of local leaders, party members, and lawmakers, all eager to discuss the party's direction as the 2024 elections approach. With the political landscape shifting rapidly, this convention served as a critical platform for shaping strategies and rallying support. The event kicked off with an energizing performance of the national anthem by Megan Schaefer, setting a patriotic tone for the day. Republican Party Chairman Brian Schimming delivered opening remarks emphasizing the importance of unity and collaboration among party members. "We need to come together to ensure that our values resonate with the voters," Schimming stated, underscoring the urgency of grassroots mobilization as the party prepares for a competitive electoral season. Prominent speakers at the convention included U.S. Senator Ron Johnson and U.S. Representatives Tony Weed, Tom Tiffany, and Derek Van Orden, who all voiced their commitment to advancing Republican priorities in Wisconsin. Senator Johnson noted, "Our work is far from over. We must focus on economic recovery and public safety to win back the trust of the electorate." This sentiment echoed throughout the day as speakers addressed the pressing issues that resonate with constituents, from economic stability to education reform. The presence of merchandise supporting former President Donald Trump highlighted the ongoing influence of his brand within the party. Attendees expressed enthusiasm for Trump's policies, indicating that his legacy continues to shape Republican strategies. U.S. Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina, a rising figure within the party, remarked on the necessity of embracing populist themes to engage younger voters. "We have to resonate with their concerns and aspirations," Mace said, suggesting that a fresh approach could invigorate the base. However, not all discussions were harmonious. Some Republican leaders expressed concern over the outspoken nature of certain party members, specifically targeting the rhetoric of Representative Don Bacon. Internal pressures are mounting for Bacon to temper his controversial statements, with fellow Republicans urging a return to a more disciplined communication strategy. "We need to quit kicking ourselves in the nuts. We must present a united front," one party strategist commented, reflecting a broader anxiety about the potential fallout from divisive narratives. In a separate yet related development, economic challenges continue to loom large over the party's agenda. On the same day as the convention, Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating, a move that has raised alarms among Republican leaders about fiscal responsibility. With concerns over government spending intensifying, some party members have begun to distance themselves from previous proposals, including a contentious tax bill championed by Trump. The decision to spike the bill reflects a growing recognition that the party must adapt its fiscal policies to align with the current economic climate and voter sentiment. As the 2025 Republican Party of Wisconsin convention wrapped up, leaders left with a clear understanding of the challenges ahead. From navigating internal divisions to addressing economic instability, the party faces a critical period leading into the 2024 elections. The success of their strategies will likely hinge on their ability to unify diverse factions within the party and connect with voters on pressing issues. Looking forward, the Republican Party of Wisconsin will need to balance its traditional values with a responsive approach to the changing political landscape, setting the stage for an intriguing electoral battle in the months to come. Melisa López Franzen, a prominent figure in Minnesota politics, has officially ended her campaign for the U.S. Senate. In a heartfelt announcement made on May 17, 2025, she cited thoughtful reflection and conversations with family supporters and community leaders as the driving factors behind her decision. López Franzen's withdrawal is significant, considering she was one of 3 women vying for the seat previously held by Senator Tina Smith, who opted not to seek re-election in February to focus more on her family. López Franzen, a former state senator who served 3 terms starting in 2012, was recognized for her role as the DFL minority leader. After deciding not to run for re-election in 2022, she took on a new position at the University of Minnesota as the Executive Director of Government and Community Relations in 2023. Her political journey has been characterized by a commitment to bipartisanship and community engagement, which she emphasized in her campaign statement. "I launched my campaign for the U.S. Senate because I believe leadership is about showing up, listening, learning, and taking action," she expressed. Her campaign was rooted in grassroots engagement as she connected with people across Minnesota in various settings, from farms to coffee shops. The issues that resonated with her constituents included the desire for safe communities, economic fairness, and effective governance. In her statement, López Franzen clarified that her decision to withdraw was not a retreat but rather a strategic pivot. "This is not about stepping back, it's about stepping with intention into the space where I can have the greatest impact," she stated. Her commitment to Minnesota remains unwavering as she aims to continue advocating for a better future through different avenues. The political landscape remains competitive with other candidates, including Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan and Congresswoman Angie Craig on the Democratic Farmer-Labor DFL side, and Republicans Royce White and Adam Schwartz also in the mix for the seat. The environment is charged as candidates position themselves to fill the void left by Smith, whose departure underscores a broader shift within the state's political dynamics. López Franzen's exit from the Senate race will undoubtedly influence the strategic calculations of her rivals as they navigate the campaign trail. Her emphasis on community connection and bipartisan solutions speaks to a growing desire among voters for authentic leadership and accountability. As Minnesota prepares for an evolving political season, the implications of López Franzen's decision and the candidates who remain will likely shape the discourse leading up to the election. The next steps for López Franzen and her supporters will be closely watched, as her experience and insights could still play a pivotal role in Minnesota's political arena. The unfolding narrative will be one of resilience and adaptability, reflecting broader trends in American politics where personal and communal values increasingly drive electoral choices. As the election approaches, the focus will remain on how candidates respond to the pressing issues raised during this campaign cycle and how they engage with the electorate moving forward. In a significant political maneuver that has potential ramifications for the U.S. economy and immigration policy, House Republicans are grappling with internal divisions while attempting to advance a controversial tax bill linked to former President Donald Trump's administration. This comes as Moody's Investors Service has downgraded the U.S. credit rating, raising serious concerns about fiscal responsibility amid growing government spending. The proposed tax bill, which aims to fund a range of initiatives including a hardline immigration crackdown, has become a focal point of contention among Republican lawmakers. While some view it as a necessary step toward fiscal responsibility, others express fears that it could exacerbate existing financial issues and deepen the national deficit. This system has left these agencies with funding shortfalls paid for by American taxpayers, said Jim Jordan, the Republican chair of the House Judiciary Committee, emphasizing the need for a balanced approach to immigration enforcement. At the same time, a separate legislative proposal is making headlines which outlines new fees for immigrants seeking asylum, humanitarian parole, or care for minors in U.S. custody. This legislation is framed by Republicans as essential for funding Trump's immigration initiatives. However, advocacy groups warn that these fees could create insurmountable financial barriers for vulnerable populations. Victoria Makeda Feldman, Director of Legal Programs at IATA, pointed out that the proposed fees could force immigrants into exploitative work situations or even compel them to abandon their pursuit of legal status altogether. The proposed fees include $1,000 for asylum applications, $550 for work permits, and substantial charges for sponsoring minors. Advocates argue that such financial demands are tantamount to penalties for seeking humanitarian assistance and could severely impact those already facing economic hardships. Heidi Altman, Vice President of Policy at the National Immigration Law Center, remarked, "This is an entire new way of thinking about fees as a penalty essentially for an immigrant status." Simultaneously, the GOP faces challenges in advancing this legislation due to the Senate's filibuster rules, which require a supermajority to pass most bills. As a result, Republicans are exploring the budget reconciliation process, which allows for legislation affecting spending and revenue to pass with simple majorities. However, the party's internal divisions were evident as right-wing lawmakers recently blocked the bill's progress through a key House committee, arguing it did not cut government spending deeply enough. Adding to the tumultuous political landscape, Iowa State Senator Lynn Evans has announced the launch of an exploratory committee for a potential run in the 4th Congressional District. Evans, a Republican from Cherokee County, stated that her decision was influenced by discussions with community members and conservative leaders emphasizing the need for true representation of rural values in Congress. As these developments unfold, the interplay between fiscal policy, immigration reform, and political aspirations will likely define the upcoming legislative sessions. With key votes approaching and the potential for further economic repercussions looming, the ramifications of these proposals could extend well beyond the current political climate. Observers will be watching closely as Republicans seek to navigate their internal divisions while addressing the critical issues of immigration and economic stability. In a significant legal development, the U.S. Supreme Court has reaffirmed its temporary block on the Trump administration's efforts to deport Venezuelan nationals under the Alien Enemies Act. This wartime law, which has not been invoked in over 7 decades, has come under scrutiny as the court weighs the administration's claims against the rights of the individuals involved. On May 16, 2025, the justices issued an order that prevents the removal of these detainees while further legal considerations unfold in lower courts. The latest ruling stems from a contentious attempt by the administration to expedite deportations of Venezuelans allegedly affiliated with the Tren de Aragua gang, a claim rooted in Trump's March 15 executive order. This order categorized these individuals as alien enemies, thus justifying their detention and potential removal without the usual legal protections. As the court noted, the legal stakes are particularly high for the detainees who face the possibility of being sent to prison facilities in El Salvador notorious for harsh conditions. Justice Samuel Alito's dissent, joined by Justice Clarence Thomas, contended that the court overstepped its authority by intervening at this stage of the proceedings. In contrast, the majority opinion hinted at a potential skepticism regarding the administration's approach to due process, emphasizing that the government's notification procedures before deportation were inadequate. The justices highlighted a troubling precedent when they referenced the case of Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man erroneously deported to El Salvador, who remains stuck in a prison despite a Supreme Court directive for his return. The administration's reaction to the ruling was swift and charged. President Trump expressed his frustration via social media, claiming that the Supreme Court's decision obstructed his mandate to remove what he termed criminals from the country. "The Supreme Court won't allow us to get criminals out of our country," he declared. This public outcry underscores a growing tension between the executive branch and the judiciary, particularly as Trump's immigration policies face increasing legal challenges. The American Civil Liberties Union (ACLU), which has been actively representing the detainees, welcomed the Supreme Court's decision. ACLU lawyer Lee Gelland noted that the ruling would prevent individuals from being deported to potentially brutal conditions without an opportunity to contest their status. He emphasized the broader implications of the administration's use of wartime law during peacetime, which raises significant constitutional concerns. Legal experts suggest that this ruling may reflect a shift in judicial attitudes towards the administration's aggressive immigration policies, especially as lower courts have repeatedly blocked deportation efforts under the Alien Enemies Act. The Supreme Court's insistence on procedural fairness suggests a recognition of the need for a balanced approach that respects both national security interests and individual rights. As the case moves back to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, the court will need to determine the appropriate legal procedures for the detainees to challenge their deportations. The outcome will likely have far-reaching consequences not only for the Venezuelan nationals involved but also for the Trump administration's broader immigration strategy. Looking ahead, the ongoing legal battles surrounding immigration policy will continue to test the boundaries of executive authority and judicial oversight. With multiple cases challenging the administration's directives, the coming months may see further scrutiny of the legal frameworks underpinning immigration enforcement in the United States. The Supreme Court's forthcoming decisions will be pivotal, potentially shaping the landscape of U.S. immigration law for years to come.